Welcome back and thanks for joining me once again. My name is Matt. I'm here on the Bonnie Lee. I'm still sitting here at Munyon Island, just north of the Blue Heron Bridge and Riviera Beach, a nice private little island. Of course, if you've watched part 2 of this series, then you'll know that I have filmed part 2 and part 3 simultaneously, which is why I'm still sitting here. So check out Munyon Island if you're in the area, but I am going to be continuing life-saving equipment when talking about the requirements for an uninspected passenger vessel. So stick around, I got a lot to cover. Let's get after it. Alright, so we're going to be continuing the life-saving equipment. This is the final part, part 3, and we're going to be talking about VDS. What is VDS? Visual Distress Signals. If you've ever been on the water as a recreational boater, you already know about flares and day signals and mirrors and whistles and all that good stuff, but we're going to look at how it applies to a UPV or an uninspected passenger vessel. And just like in the previous video talking about the life ring and EPIRBs, you have to pay close attention to the CFRs on how it applies to your specific vessel. The requirements for VDSs on a UPV are definitely different than the requirements on an inspected vessel. So for example, right off the bat, we're going to be on page 33 of that workbook that I've been going through. This is a workbook that the Coast Guard has sent out that we should be following for UPVs as I make my way towards getting commercial. So it says all UPVs must minimally carry 3-day and 3-night visual distress signals while operating on coastal waters, which includes the Great Lakes and oceans. All visual distress signals must be current, as in not expired, and vessels not on coastal or ocean waters have no requirement but may do, they may carry whatever they would want or any number that they want. So if I'm going to be out on coastal waters as a UPV, I am required to have 3-day and night signals. But if I stick to inland waters, there's no requirement at all. Now, you guys already know I talk about safety and I take it very seriously. There is zero reason if you're operating a vessel on any body of water that you shouldn't have some sort of visual distress signal, a backup radio, something to be able to communicate that you're in trouble. It's just not smart to be out there by yourself and not take proactive measures in the event that something goes wrong. And things do go wrong. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and based on how you're prepared will kind of determine the outcome of that situation. So when I had bought the Bonnie Lee, the boat was surveyed and the only deficiency that they found was expired flares on the boat. But I did not throw them away, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. So I did have to go buy all new flares, and I wanted to buy the kit that would match the CFRs so that I didn't have to buy one set and then go, oh crap, I just learned something new. Now I got to buy some more stuff, wasting money. So I went ahead and bought what I needed for the boat. So remember, we need to have at least 3-day and 3-night signals, and that's all we need. So this kit right here, I think this is Orion. I'll double check when we open it up. It is a waterproof box. It is made by Orion. And inside here, try to make it so you can see, it's kind of like a weapons case almost. You know, everything's got its spot. We have in here our distress flag, you know, the big orange flag with the black circle filled in and the black square filled in. I actually have 2 of these on the boat, one that goes in this kit and one that sticks with me in my ditch bag that we'll be talking about later. So requirement, 3-day, 3-night. So these 4 that are right here, these are the Handheld Flares. Handheld Marine Red Flignal Flare burns up to 3 minutes. They're Coast Guard approved for daytime and nighttime use. So I have 3-day, 3-night essentially right here. So I have 4 of those. An orange smoke, that's definitely a daytime signal. Orange smoke, try to draw attention to yourself. There's also pyrotechnic flares, essentially. Comes with like a little pistol type mechanism for launching these. And your cartridges, they look pretty similar to like a shotgun shell cartridge. And these are your day or nighttime signals as well. These have a 7-second burn. So when you go to deploy these or any of the VDSs, you really want to deploy them when you know that there's a good chance that somebody's going to see it. I mean, if you're looking around or you look at your radar and you don't see anybody or hear anybody, no radio chatter, no helicopters, planes, anything like that, probably best to save these until you do have some sort of contact with the outside world to set these off. Now, of course, this kit comes with a little safety whistle and a signaling mirror, so that way you can flash airplanes or other ships nearby. And there is kind of a trick to use it. You just kind of line it up. There's a little hole in the center, line it up and look through it like a sight. So that is the kit. These, they don't have a terribly long expiration or shelf life. These were bought right around November of 2021. They were manufactured in February of 2021 and expired July of 2024. So they've got about a 3.5-year shelf life on them. So you want to make that part of your plan as you're doing your checklist or maintenance log, whatever it is for your boat. You know, you check your flares, you check your fire extinguisher, you check your batteries and all your safety lights, you check your backup you know, you go through the whole checklist. You want to periodically check those, or you can simply mark the outside. I chose not to mark the outside because when these expire, I'll just simply replace the individual pieces that are expired versus rebuying the entire kit all over again. Now let's talk about why I kept those old signal flares. So this is that, when I bought the EPIRBs and the PLB, bought the entire kit from ACR, they send you this little bag. This bag does have positive flotation in it, and it does have the reflective tape. It's not Solus grade reflective tape, but because this is not meant to be thrown overboard as a life-saving device, I don't have to do any sort of modifications. This is simply, I got to ditch the boat, and whatever's in this bag is what's coming with me. So this does have positive flotation in it, so I can use it as a PFD in addition to whatever other life jacket I may have. I do have the safety light on here that's activated by water contact, so that'll strobe. So if it's at a nighttime situation, I'll be able to find out where this bag is in the water, or it can be used in aiding my rescue. Nice big Velcro flap on the front. Waterproof zipper compartment here on the side. Now I do have my licensing, my radio operator's license, my MMSI numbers, fishing permits, insurance, those kind of documents that you would need to have anyway. I did put those in here, but I put them inside of a Ziploc bag, so it's double waterproof just in case. On the side here, now if I wanted to, I could grab my EPIRB that I have mounted down below and put it inside this bag. What's inside here right now is a rescue flare. This is an electronic distress flare, and when you look at the rules, an electronic flare does constitute as a VDS, and that could replace the smoke and the fire flares that are catch fire, because this can activate just by a simple twist. It's the same thing like anything else. It does that SOS strobe. It's on this acrylic globe, so that light will shine in all directions. Now, even though you are able to use this electronic VDS in place of a traditional one, again, one is none, two is one. When it comes to safety, you can never have enough. This will probably likely never get used. This will actually probably be the backup to anything that I use. This does not manual or automatically activate with water contact. This one you do have to manually do. Take some C batteries, and that's going to be the defining point. If you're using this on your boat in commercial operation, one of the things that they're going to look for is to make sure that the safety devices are either within date of the manufacturer specifications, or that the batteries inside are within their service level. So we're going to button that back up. It's real simple device. So inside the ditch bag are my backup set of flares. We'll talk about that. But there's a couple other little pieces. You know, you want to have your survival or your ditch bag prepped for how you're going to be running your vessel. If you're going way offshore, 50 miles or whatever, and you run into a situation, you probably should have some backup food supplies, backup first aid kit, water, different survival things in your ditch bag. And I'll probably stock mine just a little bit heavier on some things, but this boat is not capable of sinking. I can certainly roll it, but it won't sink. So I have my first aid kit, and I have a bunch of other stuff that's not in here. I'm probably going to make a decision to revamp how I have this laid out. But one of the more important things to have in your ditch bag, of course, is your backup radio. We talked about these on the earlier videos. The main thing to note is periodically check these to see what the battery level is and recharge them as necessary. And also, of course, any of your VHF radios that have your distress button on it, you do have to register these radios with your MMSI or ship station license. Mine are all labeled with my ship station license, which goes with my MMSI anyway. So you want to have your radio. Another pretty cool thing, now this is something my father-in-law bought me. He bought it for the boat just in case any of the cranking batteries were dead to start the engines. Now Bonnie Lee has 3 primary batteries, and they can all be linked together to pull power. So port motor could pull power from the starboard battery or the auxiliary battery in any combination of ways. So I'm not really worried about a battery going dead necessarily, but this little jump pack battery storage is enough to jump the motor if I need to. But what's more important about this is just about everything on the boat is battery powered. Cell phones, cameras, EPIRBs, you name it. And this gives you a little bit of extra power. So in case you do have to ditch the boat and you end up like Tom Hanks on and calling out for Wilson, you'll at least have some power to recharge your radio a couple times, recharge your cell phone if you're within range. It's got a couple outputs on it, USB outputs, and then a cigarette lighter port on here as well. It's got a couple little lights on the front so you can use it like a flashlight. I don't know how much this cost, but I know it's pretty much invaluable to have some sort of alternative power supply on your vessel. So that stays in here with the ditch bag. Of course, the radio charging base and cable are in here as well. And then, there's some other little things, little safety strobes. If you can see, I don't know if you can see that or not. Is it turning on? There we go. There's another little personal strobe light that I can put on something. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that just yet. And of course, there's some contact information and some miscellaneous stuff in here. So more than likely what I'm going to do for this kit is I'm going to put a small survival kit in there, a little water supply, a little food supply, pretty much a 24-hour supply first aid kit stuff. Now these are my expired flares. These are what came with the Bonnie Lee when it was purchased, and they are all expired. Now one of the things to note on page 34 of that workbook is it kind of goes through what's all accepted, how many flares you need to have, there's a bunch of different things on page 34, but testing, they talk about training with your flares at the bottom of page 34. It says, you are authorized and encouraged to ignite flares from a shoreside location for training purposes, but you must notify the Coast Guard before and after your training. So you're going to call the local Coast Guard station, say, hey, my name is Matt. I'm going to be training with some flares. This is my location. The duration of the testing is going to be approximately 25 minutes, and I will call you back and notify you when all training is complete. And the reason for that is they don't want to get any false distress signals while you're testing, because everybody's probably going to call and be like, hey, we see flares going off, and they're already going to know that I'm in the area testing. And then, of course, more importantly, is to let them know you're done. So that way, if a real emergency does go off in that location, then they know that that is a real emergency and not just you still testing your flares. So I did keep all my flares on board. I can test with them, but they still work. That's the thing, is even though they're expired, they may not last as long as they're supposed to burn or whatever situation, but they still do work. These expired in April of 2019, and these are simply backups. So in the event of an emergency where I need to let off a flare, I'm probably going to let off my expired flares first, burn those up, but at the very least they're backup kit, because if I have my flare kit on the boat and the boat rolls over but I have my ditch bag, I still have a means of signaling for help. So 4 daytime nighttime flares, 2 orange smokes, and a parachute rocket launcher, and this one a little bit bigger shells and a bigger pistol type launching device, and I have 4 of those as well. So no matter what, I've got good stuff on the boat to meet the regulations. I have expired stuff on the boat, because if you have to use your flares and you only have 4 and you burn up all 4, what are you going to do? So I have 4 plus 4 and all the smoke. But I may have the pyrotechnician come out in me here and call the Coast Guard up and do a training. It's hard to say, and go ahead and test with these. I mean, I know how they work. I've used flares before, never for an emergency. But you know, maybe if I hire somebody to come help me, we'll do some training. So that's really about it. Page 33, 34 covers part 3 of life-saving equipment required on your uninspected passenger vessel. Again, the CFRs can get a little bit confusing, so make sure you understand, are you an inspected vessel, uninspected vessel, or just simply recreational, whoever's watching the video, because there is a difference between your requirements. And that's all I've got for you. Once again, guys, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you watching the video, taking the time out of your day. I always appreciate those likes, those comments, those shares, hitting that subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube. And again, if you have any suggestions on how I can improve the content that I bring to you, by all means, drop me a line or drop me any ideas for some new episodes that I put out. So in the meantime, that's all I've got for you. I've certainly got a lot more to go between now and being commercial and covering the rest of this workbook. So stick around, I've got more to come.